South African motorists run the serious risk of having to pay the highest increase in monthly fuel prices since records began come April. Well, this in large part due to the war that is raging in the Middle East between Israel and the United States against Iran. The resultant closure of the key waterway of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 25% of global oil supply usually travels, has seen oil prices also jump by over 30% since the war began 2 weeks ago, with Brent crude oil making a sprint towards $100 per barrel. And with this scenario, there's no doubt that the economy is about to experience even higher inflation. All right, let's now welcome Professor Chris Isike to talk to us about these latest developments. Professor Isike, we really do appreciate your time with us. Thank you for joining us. So a lot going on there. Iran saying that they are now suspending, of course, any attacks on their neighboring countries, and since apologized. But I mean, unless they are, of course, attacked by those neighboring countries, make this make sense, please, for us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Iran, right from the very beginning, their strategy was really to hit at American bases that are surrounding them, knowing fully well that they cannot necessarily reach the United States directly. So the targeting was 2.1 to the Gulf states that surrounded them, that where you had American interests, both military and the economic interests as well. You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, which they have technically blocked. And then the second prong of their strategy was to attack Israel directly, and which they've been doing. I think that the apology that the president gave to Saudi Arabia and Qatar and other Gulf states for attacking them was also largely because they were keeping their pledge that they will not allow their countries to be used as a venue for the US to attack Iran, and realizing that, well, this is a good thing on the side of the Gulf states. It was necessary for them to go back to discussing with them and keeping relations straight with them, because otherwise they would be alienated by everyone, and that would make things more difficult. I think it was also the striking these countries was a matter of survival. However, even as they do this apology, like you said, they are making it clear that any of these countries that allow themselves to be used as base for the US to strike them, they will get a response from Iran.
Absolutely. Now, Trump, meanwhile, states that today's loser will be hit very hard following that apology by the president. But again, yesterday, he was upset that his bluff call for Iran to completely surrender fell on deaf ears. Prof, we see how Iran is actually better prepared and is fast gaining additional support, even from, external groups like your Hezbollah. This is surely getting out of hand and real fast too now.
When they did learn from the war last year, they were 12 days war in June of last year, and I think this time they were better prepared. They knew that the US would use the same strategy of negotiating with them and then surprise them with an attack, some kind of gun-go diplomacy. You also heard speculations, it's not confirmed, that they got a lot of intelligence from Russia, in terms of how the US was going to attack them. And so they were generally more prepared, and that's why you saw that immediately they were struck last Saturday. They responded quite quickly and fiercely as well. And like you also said, they're getting a lot of sympathies as well. But this is not a war that Iran will win in the short term. They will lose a lot of the battles, but they're prepared for the long haul, and looks like they could eventually come out of this better than the US, because even Mr. Trump, like you indicated, is surprised by the kind of response that they've given so far.
Absolutely. And I mean, it keeps raining on Trump. While we're on him, Prof, yesterday you saw the vote on congressional powers, and that result alone should leave one thinking about how that War Act 1 and 2 in their constitution is such a confusing preamble, right? Giving room both for Trump or the incumbent president to take unilateral decisions without consulting Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that make the war illegal, apart from the fact that Congress was not convened on the side of the US. That makes it illegal. But also in terms of international law, the UN Charter has been violated in terms of the fact that the United Nations Security Council did not authorize this action. So it is sad that we are seeing the Congress, dominated, of course, by Republicans, giving over legitimacy to this kind of unilateral action, which represents a brazen and deep erosion of international law and norms, especially when great powers act without any kind of broad multilateral authorization.
Absolutely. And Prof, this war seems like it's only going to escalate further. I mean, you mentioned earlier, there's various countries still suspending their flights again now. The closure of those shipping routes that you mentioned earlier, leading to the rising oil and other goods prices. So how does the world respond to deal effectively with the situation to avoid another Gaza situation?
Well, look, the best thing for them to do right now is to try and find pathways for peace. Unfortunately, we're not dealing with a reasonable interlocutor in terms of the US and Israel. That, I think, is the sad part of this. But I think that more countries should be able to look at their foreign policy, their interests, and decide whether this war does serve them. And I think largely it does not. The demonization of Iran is an Israeli agenda that unfortunately Mr. Trump has played into. Bad as the Iranian regime may have been, to their own citizens, that would have been left for the citizens of Iran to decide, right? But this is a war that is going to have not just regional ramifications for the Middle East and the Gulf states, but for globally, everywhere in the world. And there's alerts in the Western world, especially, about these things. And of course, the economic impact, we're beginning to see the increase in rise of oil. That will eventually come down to the average man in the street. It's already happening even in the United States. It will happen to us in Africa as well. So this is a war that can have global ramifications, especially if there is no immediate offer from Mr. Trump, who's beginning to show a lot of erraticness, and that will make us wonder whether he should actually have access to the nuclear button in the US.
Very thought-provoking there. Thank you so much for those sentiments, Professor Christopher Isike there on the Iran conflict.